Welcome back, guys. We are in the latter half of stage 3, week number 4 here at Overwatch League Season 2. So we had not very close matches yesterday. We did have some very close ones the day before. The stage playoff picture is starting to get really clear. I'm actually going to go over that first. I'm going to rip through the predictions pretty quickly. I won't spend as much time on them because I'm going to talk about the standings for a little bit. So, as you can see, just like last stage was very similar. This one is a very top-heavy stage. We have a lot of teams that are already eliminated. Washington, Atlanta, Toronto, Boston, Dallas. Florida has not technically been eliminated yet, but they will be very, very soon. Paris is eliminated, and then a lot of these guys aren't, but like Hunters and Spitfire, pretty much. I mean, they pretty much are at this point. So, yeah, they actually are, because if you look at it, they can go to 4-3. Gladiators Dynasty could fall to 4-3, but looking at map differential, there's no way they catch them. So, it's a lot of the teams are set. Sorry, they're not eliminated yet because Shanghai's only played 4 matches. If Shanghai wins 1 match, then those couple teams that have 3 losses will be eliminated. Like you got the teams that are 2-2, like Philly and Guangzhou. They pretty much have to win all 3 of their matches. So it's pretty clear. New York is pretty much in. They're essentially in. They'll make it for sure. Vancouver, Spark, they're in very good shape. Shanghai has to win 2 of their 3 to pretty much lock themselves in. If they go 1-2, they could be in a bit of trouble. Valiant have officially clinched. San Francisco just needs to win their last matchup. So we will have some very interesting stuff go on, especially because look at Houston, they're 4-2 with a +7 map differential, and for example the Gladiators, they're 4-2 with a +10, so they're in better shape than Houston. However, Houston plays Toronto their last match, and the Gladiators play against the Titans their last match. So we could definitely see some movement. You could see the Gladiators definitely drop out of the playoffs at this point if Houston takes care of business. If Guangzhou sweeps all their matches, their map differential will be really good, but I don't see that happening. So, yeah, got some incredibly important matchups for the stage playoffs. Like I said, a lot of teams locked in, but there's still a couple of spots, and the seeding could change quite a bit. That's one of the things I'm most interested about, because looking at some of these like potential first round matchups, it's unlikely, but a Vancouver Shock first round matchup is not out of the question. So these last couple of days, and then next week, of course, will determine a lot of that seeding moving forward. And looking at the league standings real quick, if you look at playoffs, because of the two division leaders clinched, of course. They are the number 1 and 2 teams anyway, Vancouver and New York. Vancouver's actually already clinched a spot in the final 12, in like that top 12. And I'm sure by the halfway point of next stage, they'll have already clinched a top 6 spot. But looking at the other ones, LA Gladiators have jumped back over Hangzhou because they have a much better map differential. They have the same record though. San Francisco, they suffered another upset loss against Chun, but they're still in very good shape to make playoffs. Plus 44 differential, and they're already at 15 wins. And then you got all the other guys kind of fighting. It's getting even more tight because you got. Looking at it, number 12 is at 8 wins, right? So that's your cutoff. That's what you need to get in. Number 18 is at 7 in the Outlaws. They're at 7 wins. So they're essentially 1 game behind number 12. So we're going to see a ton of movement. I think Toronto is probably going to end up towards 18. Paris will probably end up like the 16, 17 range. Boston, if they keep playing like they have been, they'll drop a couple. We'll probably see like Valiant, Houston, and Atlanta move up at least a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be an insane last stage. I cannot wait for it at all. And it's actually kind of crazy because the only team in this like region that has a positive map differential is Seoul. They have plus 14. So it will be a super exciting race to the finish. Even like I mean London, they're not they're pretty close to Shanghai and Philly. I mean they're 2 wins ahead, but no losses ahead, and that's important. Seoul's still kind of hanging around as well, so um, we will see if these teams can, especially these last three. Can they maintain their position, or will one of these teams have a really nice last stage and make a push? Who knows? We will find out as the time comes. But for now, let's go look at the matches real quick for today and tomorrow. So, first one, you can see it up here. Dallas Fuel taking on NYXL. This is a pretty easy 4-0 for New York. Dallas has looked completely lost. OGE is out of the lineup. Apparently, he's taking a break because of just burnout, mental health issues. At least that's what I heard. I think he like mentioned something about that, how he just like kind of needed a little bit of a break. So they've had Trill in there. It hasn't looked nearly as good. They also played Harry Hook. We saw a Harry Hook sighting last time out. Obviously, it did not go too well. They got kind of stomped by Chundu. But yeah, Harry was on the Zenyatta instead of Unko, which I'm not sure quite why. So that will be probably the most interesting for me. What'll Dallas run today? But pretty much no matter what they run, I think it's going to be a stomp. Dallas, I mean, they're still in it. As we saw, they're 10th right now in the standings. They're in the thick of the playoff race still, even though I think they'll get stomped by New York here. But yeah, it's been an absolutely disastrous stage for them. They'll finish it 1-6 unless they can beat New York, and of course they'd finish 2-5. But I think that for right now, they're looking like a lower half team, and they have a lot of work to do before Stage 4 begins if they want to still make that play-in tournament. Next, we got Boston Uprising taking on Philadelphia Fusion. So Boston, they looked a bit better. They got their first win in a reverse sweep against Paris, but I still think Philadelphia is a bit better than Paris. Philly has been like the ultimate mediocre team for me this year. They've just been, I don't know, they've been so mediocre in every way, but I think that they're definitely going to be a team to watch, assuming the roll lock does happen. They're a team that's infinitely more dangerous in a 2-2-2 setup rather than a 3-3 or a 3. What do you classify it as? 3-1-2. Or no, sorry, a 2-1-3. Your 2 tanks, Sombra, and 3 healers. I think they're way, way, way more dangerous, kind of like the Spitfire and a couple other teams with the 2-2-2. For now, they'll still be kind of doing the weird goats and then Sombra goats and triple DPS on some maps. But I got Boston winning map 1 and then Philly taking the last 3. I think Philly's, like I said, Philly's still a better team than Boston. Philly's kind of the ultimate middle of the road team right now, but Boston is below middle of the road. They did get that 1 win, so they won't finish the stage winless, but I still don't think they're playing well enough to beat Philly in this situation. We'll see. They'll probably run a lot of that Doomfist and Sombra again. We'll see what Philly does to counter that. If they just run Sombra Goats or if they go to a more DPS-based comp themselves. Should be an interesting match to watch, but I got Philly taking it 3-1. Next, we got Mayhem coming off a great win against Houston. Give themselves 2 on the season. They are facing off against Hangzhou Spark, who have pretty much solidified themselves as either the 4th or 5th best team in the league, depending on your opinion. It was pretty impressive that they were able to take down the Valiant, who have been on a roll this stage. They're 5-2 and beat the Titans within this stage. So Hangzhou, clearly a much better team. I think Florida gives them a decent fight, especially on probably Nepal. Almost said Ilios. Map number 1, Nepal, would probably be their best bet to give them a fight. But I'm going to say Hangzhou takes this one 4-0. just because they have gotten really good at running their couple of strategies. And while Florida will throw a couple of unique DPS looks at them, I think that they are just very clean at running what they've been running the last couple of weeks, and they will translate that into a pretty clean, easy 4-0. Now this is an interesting one. Two teams who they've only played 4 matches this stage. So I mean, Valiant are done. There's a lot of teams that have played 6, like San Francisco, LA Glads, Houston, Seoul have already played 6. These guys are at 4, so they'll have a lot of matchups going forward in week number 5 in the Atlanta homestead. But here I like Shanghai. I think they're definitely a better team right now. However, there is upset potential here from the Charge just because they don't play standard 3-3 much at all these days. And we'll see how Shanghai kind of adjust to that because, Shanghai, they're, of course, pretty known for their Sombra. They were one of the first teams to start really running that the Sombra goats quite a lot because of lack of a diva, even though they do have Gaguri, but they clearly don't want to play her anymore, which is a little sad to me because I still think she's a very good player. But anyway, the Charge, I mean, we'll see. We've seen them play wacky stuff. They're kind of, this feels kind of mean, but they're a little bit the poor man's Chun, where they run some weird stuff quite often. They're not quite as good at it or like as known for it as the Hunters are, but there's some interesting stuff that could happen here, especially because looking at maps, you got Ilios, you got Paris. But when it comes down to it, Shanghai is still playing a lot better as a team. Guangzhou still has these moments for me where like they seem really unsure of themselves and they don't really have a cohesive plan. And I feel like their just comms in general are a bit weaker. So I think Shanghai will take it. I'll give Guangzhou either map 1 or map 2, but Shanghai wraps this one up 3-1. Moving on to Sunday, we got the rematch. LA Gladiators taking on Vancouver Titans. So last time these guys played, pretty much maps 1, 3, and 4, they played heavily goats, and Titans won that matchup every time. They took all 3 of those maps, and then for map 2 they had Paris, and Gladiators pretty easily and convincingly took that series, or that map. So Vancouver won 3-1, but when they went to the bunker and the DPS, stuff like that, Gladiators were easily a superior team. So that's the question. Will the Gladiators be able to run stuff that isn't standard 3-3, and will it be enough? They got Ilios, which Vancouver won in their last matchup, but it was pretty close. You have Horizon Lunar Colony, which Gladiators have run a bunker on. They just did yesterday. You got Numbani, and then Watchpoint Gibraltar. So I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here. We'll see if Vancouver pulls out the Sombra, because they've been practicing their Sombra goats, but it's been a lot of times against weaker teams. And when they kind of ran it against Valiant, the Valiant were better, just straight up better than them at it, for sure. So we'll see, because the Gladiators have just started to do Sombra goats too. They aren't quite as comfortable with it. If Gladiators just straight up opt into the standard 3-3, they will lose. But I think that they've learned. I'm going to have faith in them. I'm going to have faith in the coaching staff, the players, because they have a lot to go off of on Vancouver now, and Vancouver is in a pretty vulnerable spot. Just in terms of the meta. So I think Gladiators take maps 1 and 2. I think they do a little bit of wacky stuff on Ilios and are able to kind of clutch it out, and then take map 2 with a lot of bunker usage. But then I think Vancouver take maps 3 and 4 for sure. Even though we do see a lot of DPS early on Numbani, I think they can get through that and then just kind of steamroll their momentum forward with the 3-3. And then Watchpoint will probably be close, but Gladiators are generally weaker on escort maps as a whole. They have been for the last 2 years. So I think Vancouver will take those last 2. And then because the team that is reverse sweeping seems to always have the advantage, I'm going to take Vancouver completing the reverse sweep and winning the series 3-2. I just don't see Gladiators taking 2 control maps off of them in one series. That's kind of a stretch because with Vancouver, it's always that there's always just like that clutch potential where like they shouldn't win a fight, but they just do because a person or two on the team just kind of clutches it out. I think in the end that will slightly propel them over Gladiators. But this should be probably the best matchup of the entire week. It at least should be extremely close with the Gladiators' versatility and the Titans' vulnerability with the new meta. That being said, I'd see Vancouver squeaking this one out 3-2. Then you got London taking on San Francisco. This one is a little strange. San Francisco coming off another upset loss. London just suffered pretty much a pounding from Valiant. They proved that the Valiant are a much better team at running Sombra Goats than them. And I got San Francisco in this one, mostly because London hasn't looked great running the Sombra Goats, and that is San Francisco's greatest weakness, the Sombra Goats and the DPS comps that we saw Chun running. And we've also seen them struggle against multiple teams running the Sombra Goats. But London isn't nearly as good at it, so I'm going to take San Francisco in this one. I think London will sneak out a map on I'd say either 1 or 4, maybe Horizon Lunar Colony. But otherwise, I think San Francisco kind of rolls forward and takes care of business in this one. Finishes 5-2 and just clinches themselves into the playoffs for the stage. And I think that a couple of the maps won't really be that close. London will put up a good fight on 1 or 2, and then that will be all she wrote for the Spitfire. Then we got Houston finishing off their stage with a match against Toronto. So pretty much for Houston, they'll know at this point because the Gladiators have played. So if the Gladiators do beat Vancouver, then for Houston it's like, okay, we have to win. And then hope that Seoul loses, or get a bunch of maps and hope that the map differential swings it. But if Gladiators lose, Houston's like, okay, we just got to win and we're essentially in. So look for them to be motivated. Toronto, they're putting in some more pieces. Like I said, they added Logix and Mangachu yesterday. Mangachu played yesterday. Logix did not. We've seen a couple of different players coming in and out. We've seen them switching around the main tank. Looks like Yakpun has regained his role as main tank. You got God still on the D.Va. So I think this team is kind of in flux, a bit of a mess, and Houston will take advantage of that. Houston's looked pretty good on Eichenwald their last couple times. They can run some wacky stuff on Lunar Colony, which Toronto didn't look great at. And even like map 1, I think that they'll be able to use a lot of that Widow, Sombra, Pharah from their 3 DPS players, and it will be a bit better than Toronto's. I think Toronto has a pretty bright future. I think they need to add a couple more pieces, but I like the core of like Mangachu, get Logix in there, like keep Neko, have Gods in there. Gods has played well in the D.Va. So I think that there are good things happening for Toronto, but I don't think it comes together in this stage. Maybe at the latter part of stage 4 it comes out, but for now Houston's playing a lot better. I'm going to give this one to them 3-1. And the final match of the day, on Sunday, you got Chun versus Seoul. So for the Dynasty, again, they're kind of in the same situation as Gladiators. You win and you're pretty much in, unless something crazy happens with map differential, but there's a very, very good chance that it's like you win, especially if it's like a 3-1 and you're in. Pretty sure if they win 4-0, they clinch. But they're not facing an easy opponent. The Hunters are tough. They just came off a nice victory against the Shock. They've beaten the Fuel twice this stage. So this is not a team that you can look over. And looking at the maps, this could get a little dangerous for Seoul. I like Chun on Ilios. Paris, you see a lot of wacky stuff on first point, sometimes leading on to second point, and then you see Eichenwald where you can get a lot of Sombra, a lot of Pharah play. So I'm gonna go for an upset here. I like Chun, and I think they're gonna take it 3-1. I think they're gonna snag the first 3 maps, and then Seoul will get the last one. But I could also very much see this one going to 5. But even if it goes 5, I'm gonna take Chun. I really liked how they played their last couple matches. They had a really competitive series against Vancouver as well, and then like I said, those 3 quality victories against Fuel twice. That's not that quality of a victory this stage, but I mean they beat the Shock. That's a great accomplishment. So we'll see. What will Seoul do? Will they opt into a more DPS based comp and kind of match them at their own game, or will they stick to kind of like a Sombra Goats based comp? And what level of effectiveness will they have? I don't know. I think that Chundu, though, they're just a bit better at running these comps. They're looking cleaner and cleaner at these Fair Mercy, Sombra comps, and they will translate that into a victory, and they'll put themselves in a good spot to start the last stage in. Because if Chundu wins this, they'll be at 10 and 11, and they will be right there for that play-in. So let me know what you guys think about the predictions. Are there any games that you think Dallas scores a huge upset? You think anyone else like that will happen? It is the stage of upsets after all. But otherwise, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have yourselves a lovely couple of days, and I will see you in the next one.